Marina Allen is back with a new album titled Centrifics. When we last spoke, Marina had just released her critically acclaimed album, Candle Power. So now we find Marina in Maine, where she tells us what she's been doing since then.
Well, I went on a bunch of little tours. I went to the UK, and then I was writing another record.
Right.
And I recorded it last year. And yeah, so as soon basically as my Kindle Power came out in June, and
Yep.
then I went back into the studio in July. So I just kind of got to work making this Centrifics, which is
Right.
out in September. Yeah.
Because I think I read somewhere that you kind of put yourself into some kind of self-imposed 6-month seclusions or
Yeah,
Is that true or not?
it is true. Yeah. It's not, it was pretty disciplined, but it was just more, it was just how it happened. It wasn't
Right.
necessarily, I mean, I wanted to make it quickly because I felt inspired.
Right.
So it was easy, in a strange way.
And what was the source of that inspiration? Anything particular? Or you were just
I think
vibing
I
on
was just,
creativity?
yeah, I think it was just easy for me to get started, since I feel like I'm kind of a late bloomer. So in terms of sharing music.
Right.
So it was it's all in my head though, because that's not actually really true. But it was just easy for me to start because I felt like so energized basically from the Candle Power.
Cool. So I also read that making this record, it was aspirational, and I was just wondering, hey, if that's true as well, and if so, what are you aspiring to achieve?
I guess it was aspirational in the sense of, I guess I think of aspiration as not really realistic, and I definitely relate to that I made the record in a sense, like kind of over my head, and I bit off more than I could chew, and I went in with like a lot of ambition with it, and what came out maybe was, I kind of knew that wasn't gonna be the result necessarily, but it was, I think I said this before, but I always, the way that I thought about it was that I threw a rock into the ocean and then just figured out a way to swim to it as quickly as I could. So
Right.
It was just, rather than the slow submerging into each step, it felt like I just had to go and figure it out and stumble on my way.
So out of the 10 songs that comprise the album, is there one that kind of kicked things off? Was there one that once you wrote that one, you go, okay, now here we go?
Trying to remember. I think there were a couple that I mean, in my head, the way that the record works is so delicate, the way that it was sewn together feels really delicate, but hopefully powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a couple different songs that are, if there was just like 3 songs and those songs were on an EP, it would feel so disorganized, but
Right.
so yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't think one is like the cornerstone of the album.
Right.
My personal favorite is the last song, which is called Gardner's Island.
Right.
Yeah, it was just really fun to write, and it feels exciting to me.
Cement is sand and water. This city's made out of that nature. Straight lines or serpentine. A tree is still a tree is still a tree.
Gardner's Island is in Long Island, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what's happening in Gardner's Island? Do you spend time there?
No, I don't at all. I was I was on my friends from Long Island, and we were taking a day trip to Montauk, and I had never seen Gardner's Island or heard about it at all. And she was explaining to me, and she's also a landscape architect. And we were having this long conversation about nature and what like constitutes as the natural world. And especially on the East Coast, everything got farmed out like 100 years ago for agriculture and stuff that most, as from what you see, it's not necessarily like the nature in the sense of what we wanted to believe it is. But what's funny about Gardner's Island is that since it's owned by this one family, since I think they like bought it from like a pirate or something. I forget like the legend.
As you do.
Yeah, in like the 1600s or something. So it's just there is old growth on that island, and the fact that it's private and sort of policed so that it's just kind of this hoarding of natural resource in a way, in such a funny, it just really got me thinking. I don't know, it was a very inspiring conversation. And a lot of that song is about the concept of not being able to see, even understand really what like wildness is, even when it's so close to you, because of people with money being able to make that private.
Right. Oh, I see what you're getting at. Yeah. I love the little, I think it's a saxophone that's kind of fluttering at the
Oh
end.
yeah. My friend Marta, they're amazing. And yeah, they really did a great job.
Yeah. And with that in mind, so you worked with a guy named Chris Cohen, is producing most of the record. So how did you and he work together?
Well, Chris I don't know if you know his music, but he's an amazing musician. And yeah, I mean, it was more, I forget really even how we started talking. We're in a friend group, I guess. We both live in LA.
Right.
And he's a bit older than me. And he's just such a sweet person that is such a lifer kind of musician. And yeah, I think a lot of my peers really look up to him, including myself. And I forget, we somehow were talking about, I don't know, some business side of music at one point. And he kind of, I forget who mentioned it, but anyway, we just kind of fell into the conversation about him making my record or perhaps producing it. And so yeah, it felt like it just fit together. And he really taught me a lot, because he's really, yeah, like I said, he's so dedicated to music in the best way, and has such really great musical ideas and also integrity. So it's really easy to work with him.
So was it making this record much different than making Candle Power for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Candle Power is a collection of songs that I put together over the course of like 3 years, probably. And Centrifics was written all in that one kind of incubation time.
Right.
And then the making of it was much more scheduled and in a more kind of direct collaboration with people. I think with Candle Power there was so much time, and it was all DIY, so I'm a waitress, and so I was trying to come up with money to fund. It was just much longer and more laborious in a way, or a different kind of labor, I guess.
Right. So with that in mind, how does that affect what we hear, the way that you made the two records, do you think?
I'm not sure how you'll hear it, but I think for me, it feels like Centrifics feels a little more direct. And it feels for me like it's timestamp of a particular feeling that I was in, because the songs were all written in the same time period. it's explorative, but it's pretty focused in a way that I think Candle Power, I was much more consciously trying to make a stream of a logic together, since it was there's so many more things that I could have chosen to build, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
I had to kind of make up a storyline or a loose kind of narrative or sense of what Candle Power was, while Centrifics, that was just like the organic
Right.
nature of it. Because, yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So we talked about the last song on the album. Let's talk about the first one. It's called what? Celadon?
Celadon, yeah.
Am I pronouncing that correctly? So
Yeah.
why is that? Well, tell me about the song. Tell me why it's leading off the record.
Celadon, Celadon, give me a reason. I wanna believe in something other than all powerful me.
Well, actually, it wasn't originally going to lead off the record. And then the Getting Better, which is the second track, was going to be the first track for the longest time, how I
Right.
really thought about it. But then at the last second, it felt like, since Celadon has more instrumentation and it's sort of wacky in a way, there's lots of different imagery, and it's more of like an introduction to the fullness of what I hope is the fullness of the record.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I did Google the term because I didn't know what it was. Like something to do with pottery. Is that right? Glaze of some sort?
Yeah, it's a kind of glaze that in ancient China, jade was too expensive. So they developed this pigment called Celadon. And it looks exactly like jade. And that's, yeah, a lot of ceramicists use it instead of, or not instead of jade, but anyway, it's just as, to me, it's just as pretty as jade.
Right.
It's sort of this like imposter. And so I was just really, I mean, I think it's a beautiful word, first of all. And I like, it felt fitting for the song.
Good. I see you have a video out for Super Reality.
I do.
And there's like horns, it sounds like, and strings and all that. So, tell me a little bit about that one, if you don't mind.
All these curses turn to joy, and left alone, fear makes me run, but said aloud, cried over, yelled out, truth gets spoken, it's a super ballad.
Yeah, that one was really fun. I mean, it's a pretty simple song until the last minute. And how we figured that out was actually my friend Ben Varian, who was a huge part of the instrumental arrangement aspect of the record. None of that was like technically arranged, aside from deciding what player was going to overlap the next player. Like it wasn't like it was notated in any way. And we had all of the horn players, there was a trumpet, saxophone, and then we had a cellist, a flautist. We had all of the instrumentation come in and just improvise on like an F or something like that. I'm forgetting now.
Right.
And then we would just overlaid it in the mix and made it seem like this orchestra. I wanted it to have this sense. I love when you go see an orchestra, I love the sound of everyone tuning together.
Right.
I just kind of wanted to have that.
There's it reminds me, I don't know if you've heard the concert for Bangladesh, the George Harrison thing. At the beginning of it, they have Ravi Shankar on it, and he's literally tuning his thing, and he's done, and everybody applauds. And
Yeah.
They thought it was one of his tunes.
I forgot about that,
That's a great moment. Now, another song I wanted to touch on is My Stranger. Lyrically, there's some interesting things going on there, and I'm getting the feeling that I have this now image of you being in seclusion writing these things. So
Yeah.
Where were you kind of mindset wise when you were composing?
Left, lost to my own mind. Rest, wrung out my own damn pride. Hiding my tears through the movie. I'll say I swear I saw it coming.
Oh, I mean, that song is so, to me, the most like, well, I don't know, maybe not the most, but in my head, it was always kind of almost this country ballad.
Uh-huh.
I think it was one of those moments of writing where like I had a couple days of restlessness with not really knowing where something was going in writing. And then I remember waking up and kind of loosely kind of finally finding the mood of the song with that one. And it's just about, the hard truth of self-acceptance, and the difference between self-acceptance and self-improvement. And I think a lot of the culture focuses on improvement. And for me, definitely that's been, I mean, and it's good to a certain extent, but yeah, I think I was just kind of tired of improving.
I'm getting too good.
Well, yeah, well, the problem with it is that you're never quite good enough. So
Yeah, right.
the whole
Obviously
thing
it
was, about just realizing, that like you can change, obviously, and I really believe that, but you can really only change so much, and that's
Right.
also okay.
Fair enough. I like the line, "What good smelling fear if I'm the danger?"
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, well, I can be, exactly. You can have your nose up or paranoid or bad thoughts about other people, but ultimately it's all back to you.
right, right. So once the record's out, and I assume you're going to do some live shows, how are you going to present these songs?
Well, I have my record release show on the 21st of September in Los Angeles, and I want to have, all the people that played on the record
Right.
play on the show. But in terms of touring, I mean, I really like feeling free to determine that depending on the venue or
Right.
the kind of tour. I really like playing solo, and that's been working for me lately. It's cheaper, so
well, there is
really
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I assume you have it's easier to kind of connect with your audience if it's just you and them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a different. I play different songs. It's just like a totally different show. But yeah, I'm excited to develop the live stuff more, and it just takes time for me ultimately.
Right. And do people like to come up afterwards and talk to you about what your music has done for them and blah 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 and all that? Is that a thing?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like I'm always so surprised that I forget that that's like the point a lot of the times. Or
Right.
I have friends who are musicians who really like enjoy that aspect of it, and of course, it's like, especially when someone's, you can tell, is actually really touched by it.
Yeah.
It really is still like surprising, because it's so funny to be this caricature of yourself, and people thinking you're this person that you're just so not, but it's also, I am, like, it's both,
Yep.
so
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Well,
It's a weird experience. It's complicated for me, but it's of course so sweet, and
right.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
Well, that's interesting, because that explains a lot about musicians and why they possibly are the way they are, because they have this kind of dual identity going. They're public, or
Yeah.
private.
Yeah.
They're what
Yeah.
they're, you know.
Hopefully.
So,
I mean, I think that's really important. I think that's not like a form of inauthenticity to have
right.
like I think it's really like, it's healthier that way, especially with Instagram and how insane that has become in
Yeah.
terms of like persona and the blurred lines between, yeah, it just, to me, I'm very glad that I don't fully really even relate to the person that's performing. But it's just a different way to explore things, and it's easier for me to be almost the character of myself than myself.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Worked for David Bowie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He had a few
Yeah,
personas.
a great example of that.
All right. Well, you have to bring your show down here, even if it's a
I
one-person
would love
show.
that. I know. I want to play in this room.
Oh, you can. I got a nice piano. It's tuned up.
I would love that.
That would be
I love that
fantastic.
painting too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. All righty. Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for your
Appreciate it.
time.